All right, so spinal nerves. The spinal nerves are short. They're divided into two mixed nerves. Both carry somatic motor and sensory input. You have the posterior ramus, which travels to the posterior side of the body. You have the anterior ramus, which travels to the anterior side of the body. And here you see the spinal nerve coming out. Here's the anterior root, the posterior root. There's the spinal nerve. And here's the ramus coming out of the spinal nerve right there. Again, showing the anterior and posterior rami. There's the ramus communicans. You have 31 pairs of spinal nerves, 8 pairs of cervical nerves, 12 pairs of thoracic nerves, 5 pairs of lumbar, and 5 pairs of sacral nerves, and then you have 1 coccygeal nerve. And again, you have a pair because it's going left and right. The anterior rami of the cervical, lumbar, and sacral nerves each merge to form nerve plexuses. These are complicated networks of nerves. If you'll remember your number of vertebra, that will help you out here. Or excuse me, the number of ribs and number of vertebra. You have 12 ribs. You have 12 thoracic vertebra. You have 5 lumbar vertebra. There are 5 sacral vertebra. And then you have a single coccyx. You have 1 there. The difference is up here with the cranial nerves, or excuse me, the cervical nerves. The cervical nerves, you have 8. And if you will look at this, here's the 8 cervical nerves. Here are the 12 thoracic nerves, the 5 lumbar, the 5 sacral, and then the single coccygeal nerve coming off of either side. Here is the lumbar plexus, the sacral plexus. You see all the individual little branching patterns that you see in the plexi. Here's the brachial plexus and the cervical plexus. But you'll notice here, these thoracic nerves don't form the plexi like the others do. The right and left cervical plexus lies deep in the neck, lateral to the 1st and 4th through 4th cervical vertebra. The anterior rami of C1 through C5, and small contributions from the hypoglossal, cranial nerve 12. Each nerve has cutaneous branches, which means they innervate the skin of the neck and certain sections of the head, chest, and shoulder. Motor branches innervate specific muscles of the neck. And one of the nerves of the cervical plexus is the phrenic nerve, which is the major motor branch of C4, which contributes to C3 and C5, and it innervates the diaphragm. So here is the cervical plexus showing the different structures. Here's the nerve roots, which we are associated with, and what structures are innervated. A hiccup cure that really works. Anybody ever had the hiccups and just couldn't seem to get rid of them? These are annoying spasms of the diaphragm, which cause forceful inhalation of air. This is the one where, you hold your breath for 10 seconds, you drink a sip of water, you lay over the bed, try to drink a glass of water upside down. I've heard all kinds of work of the same thing. Treatments for hiccups, none have ever been shown to work reliably. One way to end many cases of hiccups involves the phrenic nerve. You find the approximate area of cervical vertebra 3 through 5, roughly the middle of your neck. Place your fingers about 1 centimeter lateral to the vertebral column on both sides. Apply firm pressure to the muscles of the neck that overlie the phrenic nerve until the hiccup stops. Usually takes 5 to 10 seconds. What's going on here is that the pressure you are applying interrupts the aberrant impulses which are causing the diaphragm to contract inappropriately. Pressure is not adequate to stop the nerve from firing completely or interfere with breathing. I've actually tried this remedy, and it did work for me the couple of times that I remember to try. The brachial plexus, you have a right and left brachial plexus. It arises lateral to the fifth cervical vertebra through the first thoracic vertebra. It provides motor and sensory innervation to the upper limbs, including the nerve roots from C1 to T1. The brachial plexus begins with formation of the large nerve trunks. C5 and C6 typically unite to form the superior trunk. Then you have the middle trunk and the inferior trunk. And there are the trunk muscles, the superior, the middle, the inferior. Each trunk splits into anterior and posterior divisions, which become the cords of the plexus. The anterior division of the inferior trunk forms the medial cord, which runs down the medial side of the arm. The anterior divisions of the superior and middle trunks combine to form the lateral cord, which descends down the lateral arm, and the posterior division unite to form the posterior cord, which lies in the posterior part of the arm. And there are the nerves of the brachial plexus on a drawing where they are leading from the spinal cord, and here is where they are found in the arm itself. The axillary nerve is a branch of the posterior cord. Serves structures near the axillae, which is your armpit, includes the deltoid and teres minor muscles and the skin over the deltoid region. The deltoid is that muscle that runs right across the top of your shoulder. The radial nerve is a continuation of the posterior cord as it descends into the posterior part of the arm. It innervates with the triceps brachii muscle and most of the extensor muscles of the forearm. Also the skin over the posterior thumb, the second digit, which is your index finger, your third digit, which is your middle finger, and the lateral half of your fourth digit, which is the one we refer to as your ring finger. The musculocutaneous nerve is a continuation of the lateral cord. It innervates the anterior portion of the arm muscle, including the biceps brachii and the skin covering the lateral part of the arm. The median nerve is derived from the fusion of the lateral and medial cords. It travels down the middle of the arm and forearm, innervates at the wrist and the digital flexor muscles, some intrinsic muscles of the hand and skin over the anterior component of the thumb, second and third digits, and the lateral half of the fourth digit. The ulnar nerve is a continuation of the medial cord. It enters the forearm near the elbow and innervates the flexor muscles of the forearm. Those areas not innervated by the median nerve. Most of the extrinsic hand muscles and the skin of the fifth digit, your pinky finger, and the medial side of the fourth digit, again ring finger, is where you will find these nerves. And again, there are the nerves. There's the curve, the cords coming down. They start branching into different nerves. And again, here are their nerve roots and the structures that they innervate. Sorting the brachial plexus, if you talk about the trunk, inferior, middle, superior, the divisions, the anterior, and you see how this comes over here. The thoracic spinal nerves do not form plexi or plexuses, except T1. T1 is a component of the brachial plexus. Each posterior ramus innervates the deep muscles of the back. Each anterior ramus travels between two ribs as an intercostal nerve. The lumbar plexus, you have right and left. They are derived from the anterior rami of L1 through L5, anterior to the vertebra. They are embedded deep within the psoas muscle. The branches innervate pelvic structures and lower extremities after splitting into their two divisions. Here you see the femoral nerve, the lateral femoral cutaneous nerve, the genitofemoral nerve, the lingual nerve, and the iliohypogastric nerve. The obturator nerve is anterior to the division and is the division's largest member. It enters the thigh from the pelvis via the obturator foramen. Its branches of nerves innervates the adductor muscles in the thigh, hip joint, and skin over the medial aspect of the thigh. The femoral nerve is posterior division's largest member. It's the largest branch of the lumbar plexus. It travels from the psoas muscle through the pelvis, under the inguinal ligament, and enters the thigh. The anterior thigh muscles and skin are where it innervates in the areas over the anterior and medial thigh as well. And it also plays a role in the knee joint. And again, there are those nerves, their nerve roots, and the structures that they innervate. The sacral plexus is formed from the anterior rami of the spinal nerves L4 through S4. These nerve branches innervate structures of the pelvis, the gluteal region, and the lower extremity. Each plexus is divided into anterior and posterior divisions. And there they are showing the nerve roots, and then over here where they innervate on the cadaver. The sciatic nerve is the longest and largest nerve in the body, contains axons from both the anterior and posterior divisions of the sacral plexus, travels through the greater sciatic notch in the pelvis into the thigh, where it passes between the greater trochanter and the ischial tuberosity. It innervates in the hip joint, in the posterior thigh, before it divides into the tibial and common fibular nerves. The tibial nerve is the larger branch of the sciatic nerve. Common axon, or contains axons from the anterior division of the sacral plexus. The tibial nerve branches and innervates most of the hamstring muscles as the nerve descends. It innervates parts of the knee and ankle, as well as the plantar flexor muscles, the gastrocnemius, for instance. Smaller nerve branches serve the posterior and lateral skin of the leg, as well as the skin of the muscles in the foot. The common fibular nerve is smaller, sometimes called the common perineal nerve. It's made up of axons from the posterior division of the sacral plexus. It descends along the lateral leg area to supply part of the knee joint and the skin of the anterior and distal leg. It divides into both superficial and deep branches. The superficial branch innervates the lateral leg and the dorsum of the foot. The deep branch supplies the ankle and dorsiflexor, or the ankle dorsiflexors, and two muscles of the dorsum of the foot. And there are those nerves going down the back side of the lower extremity. So, summary of the distribution of the spinal nerve branches. Here we have the cervical plexus. The axillary nerve serves here. Radial nerve serves here. Musculocutaneal nerve here. We have the median nerve, the ulnar nerve. Then over here you see the corresponding colors. Then you see the lateral femoral cutaneous here, the obturator there, femoral here, common fibular would be here and here, tibial nerve would be here and there. So, and then we click over to some deeper muscles of the cervical plexus, showing the deep muscles that they serve. All right. I'm going to stop there, and I will pick up later with the role of the peripheral nervous system in sensation.